to the press conference along the MED9 Leaders Summit. This is the informal association of like-minded EU countries from the Mediterranean. I would first like to pass the floor to the Prime Minister of the Republic of Slovenia, Dr. Robert Golob.
It's a great pleasure that today I welcome my dear colleagues and friends from MED9 here in Portoroz. Dear Emmanuel, dear Nikos, dear Andrei, dear Pedro, dear Kyriakos, dear Robert, dear Luis, and dear Antonio. Thank you very much for coming here. I'm also very honored to have two distinguished guests that joined us today, King Abdullah of Jordan and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and who accepted my invitation to this summit. The summit was of two parts. In the first part, we discussed together with the European Commission President the very pressing issue of competitiveness of European industries, a topic which was recognized by very important study and report by Mario Draghi last year, and that is crucial in order to, if we want to maintain our social welfare and prosperity in the future. There are many topics when it comes to competitiveness, but to summarize, the bridging the innovation gap is something that we shall start working upon immediately by heavily investing in research and technology, but even more so in appropriate ecosystem in order to support the innovation coming from research to the economy. We also address the pressing issue of the energy infrastructure, but even more so importantly, the energy prices. Still going green, through the green transition and investing in renewables seem as the most viable way forward in order to secure both. Secure the independence and autonomy, European autonomy, but also lower prices. We also addressed the issue of green transition, decarbonizing our industry, but we are also advocating for a more flexible approach by sector, with specific and special attention paid to the automotive industry in order to promote further developments in the industry. Later on, we discussed also the initial proposal by the Commission on the multi-annual budget of European Union, the so-called MFF. The discussions, which will start in December, will be long and arduous, but the common position is that we need to increase the funds because otherwise we will not be able to follow the strategic objectives that we are placing upon European institutions. Having said that, the proposal set as by the Commission was largely approved by today's discussion, and we're looking forward to continue these discussions in the following weeks. Later, during lunch, we were joined by King Abdullah of Jordan, and we discussed the very dramatic situation in the Middle East, specifically in Gaza, but also in West Bank. And initially, I would like to say that we fully recognize the stabilizing role that Jordan is playing in the region. Jordan has our full support, not just for the present, but also for the future developments. And together with Jordan, Europe would like to be even more active in the region. Secondly, we all approve of the recent ceasefire and the ceasefire plus the Sharm Sheikh plan for peace as presented by United States President Donald Trump. However, we would like to see the plan come to fruition in all terms, not just at the initial stage. In that regard, we discussed various concrete actions and measures where individual member states, but also we as a group, could support the further development, and especially the further path to peace in the region. We highlighted a couple of concrete measures, among which is the preparation of the Security Council resolution by asking for immediate immediate initiation of the stabilization force and defining the clear mandate for such a security force that would ensure that the agreement is fully respected. We also call for immediate release of all the humanitarian aid to flow to Gaza. There is absolutely no excuse for anyone to block such a humanitarian aid, and we fully expect the Israeli government to release the Rafah, but also other cross-border points in order for the humanitarian aid to flow to Gaza. And finally, we believe that if we are able to put our people on the ground in Gaza, specifically reporters, that would be absolutely the best possible way to guarantee that the agreement is fully respected by all sides and not just by perhaps one or two. Having said that, we were also able to come up with two documents. First, a joint declaration on the European matters, and second, on the joint statement with the King of Jordan on the developments in the Middle East. It is always a pleasure to host a group of friends, a group of like-minded countries, and today's discussion showed that when you are among the friends, good things can happen. So thank you all again for coming, and looking forward for next joint steps.
Thank you very much. And now head of states are going to answer questions. I would like to invite a representative of the French media asking the question to the President of the French Republic.
Bonjour à tous, bonjour Monsieur le Président, c'est la Bougriou pour TF1 LCI. Vladimir Putin et Donald
Good morning, a question from TF1. Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin should be meeting anytime soon in Budapest. Do you regret that this is taking place in a European country? What do you expect from the American president? Should he invite President Zelensky, who said he would go? If so, if he's invited? And is it now the time for the Ukrainian president to make territorial concessions? Next, we heard today that you received President Sanchez at the Élysée Palace ahead of his incarceration. Is this a good thing? And lastly, a robbery took place at the Louvre Ministry yesterday. Do you agree with the Culture Minister that there was a failure in this respect? Thank you very much. Regarding the Louvre, I expressed yesterday my determination and my support, and I will comment this topic further when I'm back in France. Regarding Nicolas Sarkozy, I always was very clear in public regarding the independence of the justice system. That being said, it was normal that, given the circumstances, I met with my predecessor in this context. Regarding the meeting to take place between President Trump and President Putin, I believe it is a good thing that they can meet to discuss their bilateral agenda. Should they be discussing the fate of Ukraine, the Ukrainians should be sitting at the table. Should they be discussing European matters and the security of Europe, the Europeans should be at the table. That being said, we shall continue to support Ukraine, which is resisting in a very courageous way. They continue to fight and to produce, and on Friday a meeting of the Coalition of the Willing will take place. Some will attend in London, others by video link, and President Zelensky will be there. The only peace that can exist is a long-lasting peace that meets the requirements of international law and sets the condition of stability. There is no alternative, and the Europeans have always been clear in this respect.
Thank you. Now STA for the president of the Cypriot
Cyprus will
government.
be the next country to take over the rotating presidency of the EU Council. What will be the priorities of Cyprus during the presidency, and will the Mediterranean be among them? Thank you.
Let me start by thanking Robert for his hospitality and for Slovenia's able leadership as MED9 presidency this year. Our meeting today and our overall coordination as Mediterranean states of the European Union is extremely valuable for my country, since in just 71 days Cyprus will assume the presidency of the Council of the European Union. And as the member state of the Union at the southeastern frontier, we are preparing to take this responsibility with full awareness of the challenges ahead and with a clear commitment to advance unity, reinforce our collective resilience, and elevate the Mediterranean's voice in the European debate. It is undeniable that the security and prosperity of the Mediterranean is directly linked to that of the European Union. And an example of this is the situation in the Middle East, which is, of course, part of the Mediterranean and which directly affects developments in Europe in terms of security, in terms of migration, energy prices, and so on. Last week, as it was mentioned before by Robert, last week in Egypt, we have been witnessing the unfolding of an opportunity for peace. And we really hope, and we don't underestimate the challenges ahead of us, we really hope that it will lead to a new era of stability and prosperity, not only for Palestinians and Israelis, but also for the wider region. Cyprus, as the member state of the European Union closest to Gaza, stands ready, as we did in the past, to contribute in a number of ways, which have been discussed also today with my colleagues. Coming now back to the presidency, and in line with what I just mentioned about the importance of the Mediterranean region for Europe, Cyprus will place the implementation of the new Pact for the Mediterranean at the core of its priorities. This pact marks a historic, positive step forward. It is a chance to reinvigorate our relations with southern neighborhood, with tangible projects that promote connectivity, sustainability, and regional stability. In the same context, we also plan to host a meeting of heads of states and government in Cyprus in the framework of an informal European Council on April 23rd and 24th, bringing together the EU member states, European Union institutions, and the leaders of the countries of our region. During the presidency, we will also prioritize key issues that are high on the European Union agenda, and at the same time are of particular interest to Mediterranean countries. Such an example is migration. As you know, during our presidency, we'll host a ministerial meeting on the implementation of the Pact for Migration and Asylum, and at the same time, we must invest in partnership with countries of origin and transit, addressing the root causes, combating smuggling networks, and opening legal pathways that match labor market needs. At the same time, preparing for and responding to climate change and natural disasters will be another area of focus during our presidency. Our region is affected by wildfires almost every year, as well as desertification. And in this framework, we very much welcome the announcement of the President of the Commission for the establishment of a regional, European regional firefighting hub based in Cyprus to also serve regional partners as a concrete example of Euro-Mediterranean cooperation. We need tangible results. We need to move from declarations to action. We need to enhance the footprint of European Union in the greater Middle East, in the Mediterranean and the greater Middle East. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And now a question for the Prime Minister of Croatia.
Croatian television for Croatian Prime Minister. So in these challenging times, we have a fragile ceasefire in the Middle East and a war in Ukraine, which has no end in sight. And Croatia is taking over the MED9 presidency next year. So which message will Croatia send? And can the Mediterranean have a unified voice in topics where the EU sometimes struggles?
Thank you very much. First of all, good afternoon, and my sincere gratitude to Robert Golob, Slovenian Prime Minister, for having organized this MED9 Summit, and also for the Slovenian presidency over the past 12 months. This was indeed an opportunity for us to go in depth of the cooperation of the 9 EU member states that are on the shores of the Mediterranean, not only vis-à-vis the key political issues, and that is especially now the security and the President Trump's plan for the peace in Gaza, but also the other elements that are also part of the Croatian preparations for the MED9 presidency. Croatia sees itself as a gateway for the Mediterranean to Central Europe. That's why we shall promote more secure, more sustainable and more resilient Mediterranean within our presidency. And I would like to connect it with another chairmanship that we have at the same time. That is the 3 Seas initiative, connecting the Baltic Sea, the Black Sea, and the Adriatic Sea, that perfectly fits actually and coincides in the course of 2026. When you asked the key opinion of all of us regarding the ceasefire, the common understanding was that we know it is a very noble attempt to stop the war. We hope that it stays, and in order for it to stay, we need a concerted effort of the international community, and especially the mandate to be given to the International Stabilization Force in Gaza by the Security Council. And therefore, it will have to be a contribution of all the regional actors, especially the Arab states, but also from the European Union and many other partners. When it comes to Ukraine, just a small point, the position of Croatia has been all along that we need a peace, but it needs to be a just peace. Peace that will enable the respect for the international law and the territorial integrity. Unless that is kept as a main line of us as democracies, we shall be looking, whether we like it or not, for other similar situations where the stronger party, the aggressor, will wish to take territory also of other countries. That's why the attempts for peace are most welcome, but not any peace that will create negative precedents. Thank you.
Thank you. A question for the Prime Minister of Spain.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. Prime Minister, about Gaza, after participating at the meeting in Egypt at the ceremony for the signature on the peace treaty, what do you think about what will happen then with regard to the ceasefire? And do you think that the responsibility for what's happening is on one side or the other? Turning to other matters that you have been dealing with at this meeting, climate change and competitiveness, have you been able to bring up your proposal about putting a stop to the change in time when it's winter or summertime, that bi-yearly change from the clock? Do you think you will get sufficient support for the climate emergency funding will be considered to be a part of the budget, despite the fact that there is reluctance there? Let me talk about your first question. I think no matter what has happened or where the responsibility lies, it is important to go back to that position when that ceasefire was signed, so that we can, of course, move forward with all of the points in that agreement to be able to get that lasting and just peace in the Middle East. We would like the ceasefire to be respected, to hold, and also there should be entry of humanitarian aid into Gaza. It is not yet guaranteed as it should be. And lastly, we want to make sure that we move towards that peaceful solution between Palestine and Israel, the two states. And as you've said yourself, we have put forward a proposal. It is the Environment and Energy Council that is looking at that proposal to end twice-yearly clock changes. And I believe there are a number of arguments that would vouch for that proposal. There's also a 2019 resolution from the European Parliament, which should be, of course, met and implemented. And all of the scientific studies, and as well as the the population, 84%, I think, believe of all of the population in the European Union is in favor of this. And then, as I said, scientific studies, more than 40 studies, have demonstrated that there is no sufficient energy saving here that would justify a measure like this. So no matter which kind of seasonal time you would like, the idea is to put an end to it because of science and because of the support. And of course, the European Parliament also supported this back in 2019. The last question. Look, I think the government of Spain has been absolutely clear on this. The argument that we have put forward about the euros, about the 2%, the GDP spending on defence, we are saying that 13% should be earmarked for everything to do with the climate emergency and civil protection, because adaptation policies have to address floods and the effects of climate change on the territory, the effects of the climate emergency. So going beyond your question here, I would say that Spain is absolutely clear on this point, that some of these policies should be covered as policies linked to security and defence, and that is what the government believes, and I think it's in agreement with the EU and NATO.
Thank you very much. And now a question for the President of the Hellenic Republic.
Mitsotakis, the MED9 has become a platform for concrete cooperation among the countries of the European South on energy, migration, and more recently, defense and security. So how do you see these schemes of cooperation evolving in the current geopolitical context? And more specifically, what role should Europe's southern borders and the Mediterranean as a whole play in strengthening in EU's collective defense and strategic autonomy? Thank you, Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, let me also thank Robert for the excellent hospitality. Let me answer your question, first of all, regarding the cooperation on topics related to energy, which is an area of great concern to all of us because it is directly related to the competitiveness of the European economy. I think there's a general understanding that we need to move faster in terms of building a common European energy market, that we are still faced, especially the countries of Southeastern Europe, with the prices that are significantly higher than those that our other member states are actually paying, and that a greater integration of the energy markets through significant investments in interconnections and grids needs to be at the top of our priority when it comes to our common European energy strategy. We also had interesting discussions regarding decarbonization in preparation of the European Council that will take place in a few days from now. And I do sense that there is a general understanding amongst the 9 of us that we need to balance the decarbonization goals, the ambitious decarbonization goals that we have set, with an equal emphasis on social cohesion and competitiveness, and that we would require a greater flexibility in terms of attaining the ambitious targets that we have set as a European Union. Now, on the question of defense, this is a topic that we also touched upon at the recent European Council. Of course, right now, the priority of the European Union is rightly directed towards the war in Ukraine. But I think we all advocate for a 360-degree perspective when it comes to European defense. And when we think in terms of the new projects of common interest that we consider promoting as a European Union, be it a drone wall or an anti-missile shield, we need to be aware of the fact that future threats may not necessarily come from the east, but also from the south. So I think we are totally united in ensuring that the entirety of the European borders are equally protected, and that any new European capacity protects all member states, especially those that are sitting on the external borders of the European Union.
Thank you. Another question for the Prime Minister of the Republic of Malta.
Television Malta for the Maltese Prime Minister. Good afternoon. Today I had the opportunity to discuss important topics on the EU's agenda, such as competitiveness, security and defence, and resilience. We are also a few days away from an important European Council meeting that is happening in Brussels, where discussions will naturally continue. So what role does the Mediterranean and the MED9 group play in this, and how can this translate into tangible benefits for the citizens and businesses across the region?
Thank you for your question. Thank you, Robert, for hosting us here and for your kind hospitality in your wonderful country. At the end of the day, it's all about the economy and how the economy and the healthy economy manages to transform itself into the bettering of people's lives. And that's why we're all about here, why we are here, to focus on the betterment of our economies and the betterment of our people's lives. A key issue when it comes to building a healthy economy lies in boosting its competitiveness. When it comes to us as island member states, I come from an island member state of the European Union in the southern part of the Mediterranean, not connected to the mainland, and connectivity assumes even more paramount importance, particularly when it comes to connections by sea. And that is why today I have discussed with my colleagues the importance of keeping the maritime sector within the European Union and within the Mediterranean healthy and not losing our competitiveness through overambitious climatic targets to our direct competitors. Of course, I'm all for the Green Deal, I'm all for reaching our ambitious climatic targets, but not at the expense of our economies, not by burdening our peoples or our businesses, but rather by getting their buy-in and motivating them to reach those targets in a fair way. That is why, following last week's vote at the IMO level, where the decision on the merits of that decision have now been postponed by a year, I now think that also at European Union level we have to reassess our position on maritime ETS and how that decision that we had taken months ago will affect our competitiveness in this crucial sector. The second point, energy. As mentioned by Kyriakos, we experience, our countries in the southern part of the Mediterranean, higher energy prices. That is why, as a country, we have had to compensate for that structural disability or structural deficiency by giving subsidies to our people to compensate for that inequality. And there again, I call for the completion of the energy union. Us, as Malta, do not have a connection to the gas grid. That is something which is almost unbelievable to hear, and that is why we are pushing also to have a gas interconnection. On the Middle East, I would like to mention a point on the Middle East. First of all, thanking the King of Jordan for today's important discussion and for his role in stabilizing what is otherwise a very unstable region. A few days ago, in New York, we took the decision to recognize Palestinian statehood, following what we have seen when we have hosted so many young children in our islands to give them the best of medical care. We have seen Palestinian children from Gaza, from the West Bank, who should have been enjoying the best part of their youth, coming to us with disabilities, having lost their families, having lost their brothers, their sisters, having lost everything that they have in life. And I think following the peace plan, I would be cautiously optimistic now. Obviously, the difficulties are still there, but we need to be united. And I think today's discussion showed a group of 9 leaders, definitely more united than they were in these last months. And I think that at European Union level, at next week's Council meeting in Brussels, we have to be more vociferous, more decisive, more in a leading position, just like we are in Ukraine and Russia. And I think we have to be decisive in the taking of the right decisions. I think we have done quite a lot, but much more remains to be done to end this humanitarian crisis. I think we have to be more decisive and more forceful in our decisions when it comes to humanitarian aid being allowed to flow freely into Gaza. Unfortunately, we have witnessed tens of thousands of innocent lives being lost. This was in 2024, 2023, 2025, not tens of years ago. And I think people living in today's world do not merit this. And we have two choices, either to remain complacent, either to let others take decisions for us, or to be at the leading role. And I think that today we have taken a decision that, notwithstanding our different perspectives, that we have to be united in one common area. And I think that is that humanitarian aid should be allowed to flow freely into Gaza. The same goes food, water, medicinal aid, and anything that can better people's lives. We have seen too many atrocities. I will go back to my personal experiences from the children that we have cured and given a better life in Malta. I think we deserve a better world, and I am happy that today's discussion will lead to the bettering also of those people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now a question for the Prime Minister of Portugal.
The proposal of European budget and the migration pressure is EU losing the glue where it used to be that holds the EU together. And what about the burqa that was vetted in Portugal and also on the seasonal hour? Do you agree? Well, thank you very much to Robert and Slovenia to welcome us and to greet Croatia that will hold the presidency next year. And also thank you for the confidence of all the colleagues for us to hold the coordination and presidency of this MED group in 2027. The question is Europe is facing a challenge. We need more wealth to have this social cohesion as a glue, as a cement, and to answer to the wishes of its citizens. We have to take over also our plan in security and defense. We have to fight for this climate change and all these issues. So we need more wealth, and we cannot lose more time. That means we have to reach all the goals we have, but we are lagging behind. And once again here during this meeting it was said we need to allocate more public budget to the European investments in several domains, but also we need to mobilize private resources. That means that we really need a savings union and investments. We need a single market of capitals and mobilize all the resources in Europe, use them in Europe and not lose them or allow them to leave. So that means we need simple rules. We have a process which is ongoing but must be implemented by the Commission and the Member States and the European Parliament. That means simplification. That means alleviate burdens, and also to work commonly, as it was said by my colleagues, namely in the field of energy, because the prices of energy are bottlenecks for the European economy. Dependency, we are less competitive, we don't have market shares, we have not the ability to affirm ourselves in the market. So we need to be more competitive in the energy sector, and we also have the ability to produce green energy. For that, we cannot lose more time to implement projects in the interconnectivity and also between other areas like the connection to Northern Africa. And another thing which is very important for social and economic cohesion, migrations, which is connected to competitiveness. We need human resources, we need workforce, but we only will be able to allocate resources to our economy if we have legal and regular migrations, if we are able to integrate properly and give hope to those that look for Europe to work. Because illegal migration must have a consequence going back. That means combat mafias, illegal trafficking, human trafficking. So we, as countries in the south, we believe it is important to implement the rules on immigrations because this will lead to more competitiveness and absorption in our labor markets for the workforce.